take the laws that are on the books against racketeering, and clearly it is a case of racketeering. When the Moody's investment agency downgrades the debt of Greece the day after there's a huge sell-off in the Greek debt by the hedge funds that Moody's is friendly with, that's a racket. That is not to be condoned in a free market system. So the case should be cut and dry.
Exactly. And Max,
stand up and make that case.
And we've got Republicans saying this is corporations, this is free market, it's sacrosanct. We've got the Democrats bought off by the same interest, lying, saying they're bringing him to heel and trying to stop this when none of that's happening. The corruption and the hubris is only accelerating, and meanwhile, people are so scared of a Chinese or a Russian spy, and, they're so afraid of an al-Qaeda turbaned brown man. But when the real threat is these guys in $5,000 suits with Harvard, business school degrees, how do we get the public to realize that in the 21st century, it's corporate takeovers, it's corporate espionage trumping governments? How do we get them to understand that this is life and death, A, and then B, where do you see this going? Because the bankers only seem to show more hubris. It's like they're completely insane.
I'm so sick of the 9/11 crybabies who are whinging over what, in retrospect, is a minor event in terms of property and loss of life. When you compare to the outrageous financial terrorism of Goldman Sachs and J.P. Morgan, the people who are living in tents all over America now are the direct result of the wealth that they confiscated, and as a result of them co-opting the system in ways that they were able to make riskless bets and make unlimited amounts of money, and anytime they make a loss, they simply dump it into the public domain. And by the way, there's another 125,000 unemployed this month, and another the unemployment benefits are not going to be continued, and the unemployment rate, the U6, the actual number is over 20%, and the average guy, the CEO of Walmart, makes let me put this, the average CEO of Walmart makes in 1 hour what the average employee at Walmart makes in a 1 year. 1 hour he makes what the average worker makes in 1 year. Now, this is all basically engineered by totally destroying the fundamental supply and demand capitalist system that was in place before the Federal Reserve took over in 1913 and introduced the income tax to pay for all that debt and interest costs, et cetera.
And it's perfect. They destroy capitalism and then blame what they've done on capitalism. It's insane.
Well, as a couple of your guests have pointed out, the capitalism is not the problem here. The problem is that the folks are not obeying the laws. You say that the situation is getting worse, and it is getting worse because they keep making more money, and they use that money to finance more deregulation. The finance reform bill, as it's called, is a joke. It doesn't reform anything. It may come into effect many years down the road, and if anything, it just provides additional cover for more of this wealth confiscation that's going on, and the result is what I call two paths. One is the neo-feudalism, where you're back to the Middle Ages of lords and serfs. The creditors are indentured servants. And then the other path, of course, I've talked to you about it, is what I call the casino gulag. And on that front, I just noticed that in Australia, there's some outrage because a company has introduced plastic credit card toys for babies to get babies hooked on credit cards and to introduce them to credit cards. And I've been saying this for quite some time, that the whole credit card companies won't stop until they'll feed credit card information through the umbilical cord into the womb to get fetuses hooked on credit cards.
I'll tell you what, Max Keiser, MaxKeiser.com. Do 5 more minutes with us on the other side if you can, because I want to finish up with the finances and the depression we're openly going into.
And now, live from Austin, Texas, Alex Jones.
Okay, 5 more minutes with Max Keiser, then Bob Chapman, international forecaster, coming up. Can't wait to ask him questions about all the big developments in the economy, get his expert take. I love having all these experts, Gerald Celente, Dr. Paul Greg Roberts, Max Keiser, Bob Chapman, so many others, Mark Faber. And basically they're all pretty much saying the same thing, but Max has a way of putting it. Max, start over, finish up with your point about what we know these Russian, really intel gatherers were trying to look into. They wanted to know about gold and silver because they know the Federal Reserve's rigging it. I mean, I don't even think that's that big of a deal. They were trying to find out. I mean, just like you go and sit in Wall Street bars and hear Goldman Sachs people bragging about raping us 3 years ago and you warned everybody. I mean, what, the Russians can't go sit in bars and hear the banker crooks that have hijacked the country sit around talking about slitting our throats?
No, I think there's two pieces to this. The first is that, as I pointed out a second ago, I think there's general fatigue about the bearded man hijacking plane, terror, fear, that's been overplayed, and they need to bring in a new cast. And the Russian femme fatale has worked in the past, and you're going to see a lot more of this.
Notice CFR member Angelina Jolie has this movie Salt coming out in a week, all about a gorgeous Russian sleeper agent. So, I mean, they're definitely been planning this rollout for a while.
Sure, you can't underestimate the influence of those major media companies and pushing, a huge global film releases, and they're all tied in on the banking system because they all share the same banker, and they all share a lot of the same information. But going forward, in terms of what the net result of all this recent brouhaha concerning Russian spies, the only piece of hard evidence that's come out, the only piece of hard information was that they had a real strong interest in what's happening in the gold market and the silver market. And, this corresponds with that story in the UK, in London, where the whistleblower on the London Bullion Market Association showed Gary Gensler at the CFTC how the silver futures market was being manipulated. And, of course, Gary Gensler, being an ex-Goldman Sachs guy, has done nothing with that information.
And that whistleblower accurately, months before, predicted what was going to happen in the market because he's working with these people and hearing them brag.
Right. Now we know that Russia has been aggressively accumulating gold. They're buying lots of gold. They're probably the most aggressive central bank in the world buying gold, and also they're buying Canadian dollars, which has some exposure to gold and precious metals. So there is a link between what's happening on the central bank side of things. They are accumulating for the first time in decades. They're net buyers of precious metals, and they're getting ready for, as you pointed out at the top of this segment, for a new global currency, whether it's going to be special drawing rights or some new concatenation of weighted currencies into a new global type currency. This is without a doubt coming because it's the only way that they're going to be able to re-securitize and repackage these the U.S. has $14 trillion in debt right now. They're talking about expanding the debt ceiling to $20 trillion. They have to repackage all that and resell it to restart the clock. And the only way they can do that is to create a new global currency to replace the dollar. And by the way, the dollar and all these other currencies will be devalued. They will all be devalued against this new currency, against the only thing that they can devalue against, which will be gold.
And meanwhile, they are trying to start a new war so they can politically launch this new order and distract us with the war. I tell you, Max, this oil spill is getting more suspicious by the minute.
Well, I think it's suspicious in terms of what? How?
The way they blocked all these foreign governments from coming and helping, the way they gave orders to the well operators they knew would cause it to explode, the way they're pushing their carbon tax to remonetize their new system. Max, we'll talk to you come up in a few weeks with your once-a-month visit, maxkeiser.com. I appreciate all the time you spend with us and your great insight.
Hey, if anyone wants to send me a cookie, go to sugarplumcakeshop.com.
Always some strangeness from Max Keiser. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Max wanted to say some kind words about Bob and explain that cookie thing. Now I know he plugs a cookie shop down the street from him in Paris, and they get thousands of emails every time he plugs them, and then he gets a free cookie. Now, I tell you, that is some expensive cookie there. I mean, a plug on this show is probably worth about $1,000, and that's fine, Max, but if you want to spend your plugs that way without saying maxkeiser.com, then you can go ahead and plug the cookies. But I hope you're getting more than one cookie. Tell us about your favorite cookie place.
Yeah, the sugarplumcakeshop.com down the street from where I live, the new bakery in my neighborhood run by these three women, very, very attractive, cute, perky
so
women.
That's what's happening is you're actually hitting on the women right now.
Basically, yeah. So, I mean, you PayPal them, $5, at sugarplumcakeshop.com, and I'll be sure to get a cookie.
Okay, this is part of the brainiacs like to screw around with funny jokes, and I've noticed that the eccentric types do that. I'm eccentric myself at some levels, but you're now basically prostituting people to worship the women over there. But that's fine. I hope people buy you some cookies. Max Keiser, we'll see you again in a few weeks. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Alex.
You bet. Take care. Maybe there's Russian spies over there. No, I'm being sarcastic. Okay, let's get serious. Let's go to Bob Chapman.